Edit audio.
Hello, everyone. I'm Robin Hopkins, and this is Well Adjusting, where I talk to people about life stuff, but not in an NPR way. It's more like we're at the bar, having cocktails, getting into your business sort of way.
It's giving drunk NPR.
Oh, and producer Steph is here too.
Hello.
Today we chat, well, living in the chaos of global politics. Okay, folks, I do not think that I need to tell anyone that the political landscape right now is, well, it's pretty crappy. Now, we are in a polarized place, and I'm going to say it, things feel just a tad bit out of control, like you're on a big roller coaster and the dude forgets to lock the harness and you're bracing yourself for the loops that are coming. That is how I feel. Well, when I feel like that, I do one thing. I called Tania Israel and I asked her to come be on our podcast to calm down not just me and producer Steph, but anyone listening, which at this point includes Chef, producer Steph's new dog, who you may hear at certain points during this podcast. Bear with us. So, Tania, for those of you who are listening, can you tell them who you are and why I have a bat phone to you for all crises?
Hi, Robin. I'm so happy to be back on the podcast. And I am a professor of counseling psychology at UC Santa Barbara. And I have written a couple books about navigating political division, Beyond Your Bubble, which is about how to have dialogue across political division. But then all these people are like, but I don't want to talk to those people, but I'm still kind of losing it. What do you got for me? So my most recent book, Facing the Fracture, sort of takes a broader approach to how we navigate these difficult times. And so happy to be here to help you and everybody else get through this time.
Well, all right, let's start here. I mean, this is the question. And to a certain extent, I think it applies to everyone. It's more relevant for one side right now. And I know that I maybe have already broken the rules by saying sides, but let's talk about living within a political climate that you can't change. I mean, this is the lamest question ever, but how do you do that, Tania?
First of all, it's so great that you're recognizing that there are things you can't change right now, because I think that's actually one of the most important things, is to acknowledge that there are some things we just can't do anything about. Right. And we should maybe be aware of some of those things, but we can't put all of our focus there. I think the most crucial thing is to figure out what can we do anything about and put our focus there. But honestly, the media, for the most part, is going to be leading us to focus on all of the things we can't do anything about. And that's what's got us just spinning around.
It really is, because we talked a little bit about this last time you were on, when the election happened and my person lost. I'm just say it like that. I immediately got rid of Hulu Live so that I could not watch MSNBC or CNN, because I think that during the first 4 years of Trump, it really riled me up. And I think it's not that it's not news. It's that you are telling me all the things that could happen, and this could happen, and that could happen. And if that happens, then this could happen. And every one of the things, and I know they're doing it to keep eyeballs, but like, you're scaring the pants off me and I can't do it. And so I went down to just like Apple News. So written, because I was like, maybe that'll be better. I won't have anybody pontificating. But I feel a little better, but not a lot better.
Yeah. And this is one of the challenges, is that we want to stay informed.
Right.
It's not about like ignoring everything that's going on. We want to stay informed, but also in a way that's really going to help us to get through this and to make a difference where we can. So my own thing is I really pay attention to the tone of the news that I'm listening to. And the tones that get me really amped up, I'm like, I don't think that's a good source for me to get my news, because it's not good to stay at that level of emotional activation all the time. So I am looking for things that I can read or that have more calming voices. That's just one level that I'm thinking about in terms of how I get my news.
Well, what are you gravitating to right now? Like, where are you finding? Are you searching by outlet, or are you just like, when you open it, this is one I cannot read?
Right. So NPR is my main source of news, and it has been my whole adult life. And right now on the NPR app, you can select which stories you're going to listen to. And so I've been more selective. I don't just listen to the whole broadcast the whole way through, because some things I'm like, yeah, they covered that 3 times already this week, and they don't have anything new about it. It's just kind of grinding away at the same thing, and I don't need more of that. So things that are going to give me new information or some depth of information, I think are helpful. The other thing that I'm really aware of, yes, NPR is obviously on a particular side, and it's helpful for me to remember that and to remember that they have a certain narrative that they're sharing. Not that it's fake news, not that it's not accurate. I think that they're very accurate, but they're also narrow in terms of what they're sharing. So what I do about that is there's a couple sources that are going to show me how a particular news story is being covered by multiple media outlets and show me kind of what side of an issue they're on. Yeah.
What are those?
All Sides and Ground News. These are great resources because I can go to that and I can be like, oh, first of all, here's what another source on another side is saying about this same issue. And, that helps me to fill out my information about that a little bit. It also helps me to understand how people who are looking at that media have such a different perspective on things that I do. It'll also tell me what are the stories I'm not being exposed to at all, and what are the stories that people on another side aren't being exposed to at all. And that just helps me to understand this division that we have and where other people are coming from.
Yeah, that's fantastic, because I feel like for a while, I was using Twitter like that. Like I would go into the comments and Lord have mercy. I mean, what is it? Something like a third of those comments are bots anyway that are literally designed to like rev me up. And it works.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was a bad choice.
Well, one of the things we know about political discussions on social media, well, first of all, it's that the people who are posting and reposting about politics are more extreme than most people are. They're also dispositionally just more hostile people than the rest of us. So when we are looking for news on social media, what we're getting is mostly extremity and hostility. And not only will that amp us up, it'll just make us, feel like, oh, I don't want to deal with those people at all. And, kind of disconnect from the news, but also sometimes disconnect from people who are important in our lives.
Yeah. I'm like almost using the lens of what would Tania do? Because you are a specialist in this. You've been doing this. You started with abortion, right? Trying to bring folks together on opposite sides of that topic.
Yeah, absolutely. Back in the 1990s, I started a group to bring together pro-choice and pro-life people to have dialogue with each other. And I mean, the amazing thing about actually being in a room with other people who have different views and are interested in connecting around it and talking about it is it really humanized people on the other side in a way that when I just listen to the rhetoric of people on my side, and also, frankly, when I listen to the biases in my own mind, I see those other people as really narrow stereotypes, and I see them as being irrational and uninformed and hypocritical and all of that. But when I actually listen to where they're coming from and try to understand them more deeply, wow, they're just as human and three-dimensional as I am, and just as logical or maybe illogical as I am.
Yeah. I think I'm always looking for the other side to be like, can you come to me a little? I'll come to you a little. And I do think that, and we've talked about this before, that we're all just like, we're in our camps, we're in our bubbles. But like, I'm circling back to what would Tania do? So you have looked at the news, you have chosen your sites, and then you just put it away and go about your day? Like as things are happening and you just are able to just go, I'm informed, that's not going to bother me today.
So one of the things that I'm trying to do is, okay, well, if I'm not going to just listen to NPR all day, what am I going to do? What am I going to listen to? And so it seems like I I approach understanding what's going on in the United States from a historical perspective in these moments. So around the 2016 election and shortly thereafter, I did a deep dive into Alexander Hamilton's life. And I just finished listening to Team of Rivals, which is Doris Kearns Goodwin's book about Abraham Lincoln's cabinet, which is fascinating. And actually, I've been obsessed with the U.S. Constitution. So I'm learning all about the Constitution these days, which is great because the 250th anniversary of our country is coming up in a little bit over a year.
Maybe.
So I
Tania,
feel like
maybe.
Just kidding. Fingers crossed, and we can all do something to keep it going, right? So I look for other things that I can learn about that actually do really help to inform me about what's going on now. But they're doing it in such a way that it's not just getting me amped up and making me feel helpless.
Well, I guess my question is, so you read the Constitution and you see all the things that are working their way through the courts right now, and half of the news is that they can't do that. That's unconstitutional. Like, does that not amp you up more? Like, does it not make you be like, yeah, you can't do that? Like, I'm afraid it would make me be like, I'm just learning more of the ways that rights are being trampled.
So one of the things that's happening when people say, well, the courts say, well, you can't do that, that's unconstitutional. I'm like, right, that's the role of the courts. Like, the president can write whatever executive orders they want. A lawyer explained to me, they're like, you want to think about executive orders as like a wish list. And some of those things can get implemented immediately, and some of them have been. But some of them can be challenged or need other ways of, making things happen. And I'm going to say, like, legit, there's a lot more happening in this administration than has happened in other administrations in terms of radical changes that go far against the traditions of what we've done in terms of government in the past. And so it's not that I'm ignoring that or not acknowledging that. That is absolutely true. And I will say there is precious little I can do about any of that.
No.
But the courts can do things about some of it, and they are. And so I'm like, yes, that's exactly the role of the courts. One of the things that I'm aware of with the Constitution, the way that I got interested in the Constitution recently is that before the inauguration, I was like, what is it that the president's about to swear to? So I went to look for what the oath of office is, and it turns out the oath of office is in the U.S. Constitution. I'm like,
yeah,
our founders were like so forethoughtful and also kind of micromanaging. They were like, these are the
very
exact
micromanaging
words that every president's going to say. I know. So I thought that's interesting. But then I got into the Constitution and started reading more. Okay, I'm going to tell you my favorite story about the Constitution, which is there are 27 amendments to the Constitution. And the 27th Amendment was passed by Congress in the 1800s. But as you know, like, they're not really amendments until they're ratified. It was not ratified until the 1990s. So this is the amendment that says Congress can't give itself a raise. Like, they can vote on a raise, but it won't be implemented until after the next election. And the reason that it finally got ratified is there was a college student who wrote a paper about it and got a C on his paper and was so upset about that he went and got the darn thing ratified. And I'm like, what? It is such an empowering story. It's such an empowering story about like a pissed off college student.
Yeah.
But it does say to me, like the people have power. We still do in a democracy. Now, we want to make sure our democracy holds. And I think that's, vital. And that's really one of the things that I'm most interested in. But part of it for me then is really understanding, what does that mean? And what is our democracy? And that's why the Constitution right now is such an important thing for me to understand in greater depth.
First of all, that's like so interesting, that whole story. But I think in you telling that story, you touched on the thing that is, at least for me, the biggest fear. The articles, like you were talking about comparing, Abraham Lincoln and Hamilton and looking at all that stuff, like the articles that I'm seeing, and even if I don't click into the article, I still see the top line where it's fed to me in social, and then that little well, it's like a wormy thought that comes in my head and just like is burrowing and making a bigger hole. And it is that like the comparisons to the Third Reich and the setting up like the third term. And then you have Mike Johnson. And again, I only saw a clip because I'm like, stay away, stay away, stay away. But it was about closing down like courts or, that kind. And it's like, those are the things that it feels like there's enough here that's frightening. And I don't know that reading the Constitution would make me feel better. And I don't know that you're going to have the answer. So I just am like saying that out loud.
I appreciate that. You are absolutely not the only person who's in that place. So the question I always come back to is, all right, what are you going to do about it? What are we going to do about it?
I'm going to panic and make margaritas, Tanya. Obviously. I'm just kidding. Just kidding. Not helpful.
But that tequila is going to be more expensive now because of the tariff. Yeah, it's affecting us on lots of levels. So I think it's helpful for each of us to really come up with our own plan for what can we focus on? What can we do that's going to make a difference? Because one of the things I think is, all right, assuming there's going to be another election coming up in a few years, what are we going to do now to lay the groundwork for a change, to an administration that's really going to support our democracy and not, do so much to dismantle the government, which is, the way I see it, it's obviously not the way everybody's seeing it.
Yeah.
And part of that, okay, the more we freak out and the more we think about people who are on the other side as Nazis, and, it's not to say that there aren't any, but most people are not that. So one of the keys for me is thinking about where are most Americans and where do we have common ground? Most Americans support democracy. Most Americans actually believe that we can find common ground on things. Most Americans want to work together and support a civil society. And so what can we do about that? Okay, here's the other thing I'm really obsessed about, which is there's this movie called Join or Die. And it's based on Robert Putnam's book, Bowling Alone, which was from the 1990s, looking at how civic engagement has decreased over time. And this movie, Join or Die, is really looking at what does that mean in the current context. It's also like a beautiful story about Robert Putnam and the work that he's done. But it looks at within this context of political polarization, what's the importance of civic engagement? And it's a really well done documentary. And also it's on Netflix, which frankly, like we're all paying a lot for these days. So we might as well use it for something good,
Something other than apple cider vinegar. Yes.
So Join or Die, it's like an hour and a half. I watched it twice in 10 days. I liked it so much. And so it really will be convincing about how participating in our communities is so important. And that might mean, volunteering. It could be like volunteering for a political campaign, but it doesn't have to be political. It could be joining the Elks Club or doing literacy tutoring or coaching Little League. So anything that we're doing where we're engaged with other people, where frankly, we're not on our phones, where we're connecting with human beings rather than their social media accounts, that's going to be helpful.
Yeah. It's interesting because like when I'm at my best, I think I am able to be like, okay, there's this whole side of people. And again, I'm saying side, but like, just, let me, Robin. There's this other group of people who think differently than I do, that believe in states' rights, that believe in this. And there's a part of me sometimes, because that does feel like what's happening is we're trying to strip away the federal government so that each state has rights. But then you're kind of also coming in and being like, yeah, but I'm going to withhold your funding because I don't like how your state's doing it. That's the part that kind of pisses me off. But like, there's a part of me that's like, well, maybe maybe it's a different business style. Like some CEOs come into a company and they yell at their people and they like to make their leadership fight and they think that engages the company. Others like to bring people together. And maybe this is a different philosophy of leadership. Like sometimes I can maybe get there, but it's that last piece of like, but then you wielded your power because you didn't like how my state was doing it. It's the abortion argument. It's like you want abortion to be illegal in your state, and the most people believe that. Well, that's fine. But then you can't put a law on the books that says we're going to fine you or put you in jail because you left the state to get an abortion. So like I can start to come there and then I stop myself because I'm like, well, we either have to like play fair. Like I think sometimes I have this idea that I'm trying to look at this and be like honest and forthright and transparent. And I feel like there are many people in politics that just want to win.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And that's
that would be great if you were like, and scene.
Mic drop. Yes, that's it. Yes, of course. But the people who really want to win the most are the politicians, like the policymakers. They literally have to win to keep their jobs. And most of us are not policymakers. Most of us are not owners of media conglomerates. Most of us are people like trying to get through our lives. Those are the people who I focus on and who I try to understand and who I try to connect with. So you're sort of thinking through some of these issues and you're like, okay, well, maybe I can try to understand it this way, but what about this thing? So that curiosity that you have is so great because when I have an opportunity to talk to somebody who has a different view, I come at it with that curiosity where I'm like, okay, this person is a resource for me. Maybe they can help me understand. And if I approach them only in that way, where I am not in a role where I'm trying to convince them, but I really, really, truly just want to get it in terms of where they're coming from, we're going to have a much better conversation than if I'm coming at things thinking that my job is to convince them.
Yeah, you've been saying that since the first time you came on Well Adjusting. I'm still working on it, Tania. I want to bring in producer Steph because producer Steph has a very unique view in that she's from Canada and has come here. And it's like things are happening, obviously. We're going to buy you
so many
Steph.
questions and I'm trying to like write them down and organize them in this notebook. But I'm going to start first with civil engagement or civic engagement. And so I'm Canadian, and in Canada, I always tell people, if you haven't written or called your representative, I don't want to hear from you. Like if civic engagement is like we all recognize the courts have power. We all recognize the politicians have power. If we're all recognizing that and you're not engaging with the person you've elected, if you're not voting, if you're not doing these things, I don't think that you get to like come at me. And I would say that in Canada. Now I'm in the States and there is such a huge distrust of government and a huge lack of, I don't even know how to like vocalize it. Like the lack
half our
of
country
engagement.
doesn't vote, Steph. Half our country doesn't vote.
And we have that problem too, but it still feels like people are like sort of engaging on like a level that is like, you know, community based. And I see that in New York sometimes in some places, but I don't see that very often. And I guess my question is, I don't feel confident saying that here because I feel like so many people have been genuinely hurt from the government here and have been disenfranchised from like doing civic duty. But how do I convince people or talk to people? Like, what are the civic duties that you can actually do in the United States that, like, I can engage in or, you know, tell my friends to engage in? Because it seems like voting is not enough right now. That was a long-winded way. But if, like, the Supreme Court can be swayed, like, how are we doing that on a local level to then reach this thing? Like, is it calling our politicians? Is it, like, I will sit on a phone bank for 45 hours. I don't care. But I need to know what those things are here.
So
and
well, and that's
tell me
something
what to
that
do.
is actually very helpful. Yes. Okay.
This whole episode is going to be called "Tell Us What to Do," Tania. Tell us what to do.
I love this.
I mean, I am such a doer, and so is Robin. And I'm also like queer and community. And I feel like I do so many things on a local level, and I truly am at a loss for like a larger scale level. So I would love to understand what those things are so that then I could pass them on.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great that you're doing things on a local level. And that's actually usually what I recommend for people. Like, get engaged in your local community. And if you're politically inclined, get engaged in local politics. I hadn't been until I heard Obama speak in 2007. And I was like, and I was sobbing. I was like, wow, what's going on here? Anyway, I started volunteering.
I feel that
and
way
I
about
got
Pete Buttigieg.
Oh, yeah. And it's great to be inspired by these people. But then it's like, okay, the actual work of these campaigns is not like that all the time. It's being for 45 hours on a phone bank. It's knocking on people's doors. But I love actually being able to connect with the voters and with the public, because you get a really different take on things. I spent the week before the election knocking on doors in Hazleton, Pennsylvania. And had I spent that all of my time before the election in Santa Barbara, California, where I live, I would have been mystified by the outcome of the election. But having knocked on doors in Hazleton, I was like, oh, no, not as surprised, actually, by what happened. So you just get a different take on things that way. So I think that's great. I mean, frankly, our local political scene, it's a microcosm. It's also a feeder into, higher level politics. So getting to know the public officials, I think, is useful. Like, go into the town halls or volunteering on their campaigns or getting to know their staff. Like, that's one of the mistakes that we make. We often think it's just about the elected official. But if you have a concern about something, going and talking to somebody in the office or calling and talking to them, they'll sometimes also help you to understand what's going on. So some of it's about voicing our opinions. Some of it, I think, is about just understanding the intricacies of how policy making happens.
I will say that since the last time you were on, I took the local level thing to heart, and I've made it my mission to try to get the intersection in front of our apartment where both my kids were hit by a car, where I see an accident every single week. And I made it my mission. Like, I just keep, me and ChatGPT are writing letter after letter after letter. And I'm firing it to everyone and trying to get someone to care about it. And I wrote letters to Target when they got rid of the DEI stuff and have stopped shopping there. So I'm trying to do like little things that make me feel like I'm doing something, but it can sometimes feel like then I'm like in the cog of them telling me to just put in a complaint with 311. And
that's
I'm
not
like,
little. Also, one of my friends just got a stop sign put in here for the same reason. It did take 3 years, but it happened.
yeah.
I have a follow-up question, which is related, which is like, how do you reconcile so the being inspired by listening to like an Obama, like being inspired, that fuels action. That fuels like wanting to be engaged. You're like excited, you're moving, you're doing things. That same feeling is tied to fear. And that's the reason why the news is so hyperbolic and so like in your face, because they're trying to get people amped up and doing things in favor of whichever direction they are. So how do you do things from a place of not that? Like, how do I tell my friend calmly that they need to be doing more and not from a place of fear? Or how do I tell myself that? Because I find, when I'm signing up to these things, it's because I don't want a world war.
Yeah. Yeah. And that can certainly be a big motivator for some people. I mean, fear. And Robin, I have to say, I'm so sorry your kids got hit, by cars at that intersection there. Yeah. But clearly that was a motivator for you. You're like, physical harm to the people I love the most, I'm going to take action. And so that can do that. But I have to say, so I used to subscribe to The Nation, which I felt so informed all the time and so paralyzed by just the enormity and intricacy of everything that was wrong. So that can feel overwhelming too. So it can actually keep people from taking action. Then I canceled my subscription to The Nation and I subscribed to this magazine called Yes! The Journal of Positive Futures. And that also informed me about things by telling me what people were doing about stuff.
Oh, I love that.
I think that that's one of the things, one of the ways that we can inspire other people to get involved is by talking about what we're doing and how that's making us feel. Here's the other thing I'm going to say. most people are never going to do any of this. Like most people are not going to get involved in political campaigns. Most people don't even want to talk about politics. Most people, when you start talking about politics and all the stuff you're doing, they're like tuning out. And they might feel guilty or they might feel whatever, where they're like, I don't want to hear about any of this. So one of the things that has been so great is that when I got involved in politics, I found all the other people who were willing to do the stuff. And I'm like, oh, these are my people. These are the people who will show up, who will actually engage. But you can also help those other people who don't want to be involved in politics think about other things that they might be interested in doing. Like, do they want to go on hikes with the Sierra Club? Do they want to, like, just something where they are, and I'm not kidding, putting their phones down and actually engaging with other folks. And part of the thing is we think about all of our communication in this very, like, one direction. Like, either we're taking in all the stuff from the news or we're, like, writing letters and sending stuff out. We are not very practiced these days at the sort of, whether it's conversation with people across divisions or even just conversations with anybody about anything. We're not doing that as much, where it's just like, I'm going to listen and respond. I mean, it's basically all improv, that we're out of practice doing that. And I think COVID had a lot to do with that also.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So, yeah.
So,
And just
I don't
like
know if that answered your
loneliness,
question, Steph.
suburbanness. No, and I do think that's like part of it is like, me and my partner talk about this often because they're from Texas, and like Texas just is a more spread out city. So like your interactions with people are less on a daily basis than they are in New York City. Does that mean people are actually interacting in meaningful ways in New York City? Like, no, most people are not. But at least you have like, you know, you're probably going to bump into someone who is of a different like wealth bracket than you, which I think is helpful.
I mean, I think that both of you are really talking about figuring out, like, what's the thing that you can do? And the thing that I do, because honestly, like, yeah, I get upset about this stuff too, and it can be hard. And I'm like, oh no, what's happening to our country? So I think, what can I do? And one of the things that I've done in the context of all of this is I made a worksheet. I'm like, what can I do? I can make a worksheet. So I made this worksheet about like staying grounded and engaged in turbulent political times. And I was like, I'm just going to put this up on my website. And here, now I've done something where I can help other people figure out what to do. Because I'm realizing that so much of what we're talking about here, it's the same stuff that I am sort of walking people through on this worksheet.
What's really interesting about your worksheet and what you don't know about producer Steph is that, Steph, the worksheet is these little sticky notes, and then you fill them in. Steph's always like talking about, write a sticky note about a gratitude moment, put it by your computer. So it's like, it was like you wrote it for everyone, but also producer Steph.
Oh, thank you so much. And we will link to that so that I can see it and also other people can. But I mean, yeah, the thing is that we're all doers. And I think to some degree, I have to accept that not everyone is a doer. And there are reasons for that that are beyond my control. Can I ask another question, even though I'm derailing us, Robin? So I am Canadian. A lot of people I love are Canadian. A lot of the like conservative, and I'm using air quotes now because I think conservatism has changed, but a lot of the conservative people that I know in Canada are like looking at what conservative is in the States and freaking out now and being like, whoa, that is not us. Like, that is not our brand of conservatism. And I see that happening here too. But I guess I'm wondering if you have any advice, because it feels like my bubble used to be like left New York City, like left leaning New York City. And now it feels like my bubble is actually like being in the United States. The people that are in Canada are truly thinking about the next world war. And it seems like a lot of countries are also thinking about that, and not from like a hyperbolic, like not even like the news is like, I mean, maybe, but like governments are like preparing to some degree, you know? And I guess I'm like, okay, now my bubble has sort of shifted where I am like cleaning up my house, in that like my house is New York City, but actually I have like another house in Canada that might get fucking bombed. So like, what, help me.
I love how every one of your questions ends with, "What? Help me."
No, but I think that is a real thing where it's like your bubble, you think of it in this way, and then all of a sudden it's like grown to this like massive other bubble that I'm in, and I'm trying to like balance, I guess, my efforts of like doing in both places. And that's really hard.
Yeah. You can't do everything.
What?
I know. It's really challenging. And one of the things that's so hard right now is how chaotic it feels. And that's what I'm
Yes.
really hearing. It's like we don't know how to anticipate what's going to happen. What's going to happen? It could be horrible. I mean, it could destroy our democracy. It could destroy the world, literally. And how do we hold that and just go on with our lives and do things and do something that feels like we can make a meaningful difference right now? And so, some of it's about like compartmentalizing. Some of it's like, I'm going to get this information and now I'm going to focus on something else. That's why the sort of Post-it notes I think it's like I will stay informed from these news sources, but that's only one Post-it note, like the listening to the news. And by the way, one of the things on there is like just a checkbox, like turn off news notifications. So make sure you're not getting those because that just is going to keep you hyped up. I think about like what's going to keep us healthy and grounded and strong and informed so that we can take the actions that we will take and that we do take. We can't do any of that if we are spinning out constantly. And it's not good for our health. It's not good for our mental health.
I host another podcast called Dear Headspace, and it's in the mindfulness arena. And last night we were doing a live event for a company. And Dora, she's one of the meditation teachers at Headspace. She's amazing. And she was talking about sometimes just accepting what is. Like in the practice of mindfulness is it doesn't mean that you're going to meditate and you're going to come out in this, this lovely cloud of joy, but it means that you are in the moment and you may be able to accept what is. And I do think that part of this, like I can hear it in Steph, like, and what can I do? And I know it in my body, which is this, I am not accepting it. I am like panicked, I am afraid, I am stressed, I am worried. I might be compartmentalizing sometimes, but it's like the elephant that is inside that's just like stomping around. And so it's like
a
I do wonder.
Hyena.
Yeah, is that like your dog, Chef? But like, maybe that is part of the solution too, is finding our way to, like, I don't know. I don't do well with this. Like I am currently in therapy and talking a lot about this, about that trusting things will be okay. And I do think that all that's going on is just is triggering every part of me that feels like it's never going to be okay. And I can't believe that I'm alone in that.
People keep turning to me for my optimism, and I am, I think, the most optimistic person I know. I don't necessarily think everything's going to be okay. Yeah. That's not where I get my grounding from. It's not sort of imagining that it's all going to work out all right, because I don't know. I think things could possibly get just as bad as any of us imagine that it might. Yeah. And then, given that, what am I going to do?
What am I going to do?
I just keep coming back to that. So
we are all moving to Steph's house in Canada is what we're doing.
There we go. Thank you, Steph, for welcoming us.
Yes, you are invited via Robin.
So I just want to point out some of the Post-it notes on that worksheet that we haven't talked about, because we talked about how to take actions to support democracy and the issues we care about and engage in our communities. But there's also things. There's how are you going to take care of your body? How many hours of sleep do you want to get every night? Like what physical activities are you participating in? What yummy, healthy foods are you eating? What social and creative things are you going to do? I always love the line from the musical Rent, the opposite of war isn't peace, it's creation. So what can we create? Who are you going to seek support from who's not just going to further amp you up? And then also, if you want to gain new perspectives, where are you going to get those? So I think we need to think about our plan, not just in terms of how am I going to stop the world war that might be, heading toward us, but think about it comprehensively. What are the different pieces of our lives that we need to get into place so that we can sustain ourselves through whatever it is that is going to happen?
I mean, I know that we can't change the world, but I do want to say that I think I feel a little bit lighter after talking to you, which I always do. And I'm going to speak for producer Steph and for all the well-adjusting listeners and just say, Tania, please don't ever leave us. It is critical that you stay with us. We need your calm and collected vibes and all the advice to help us move through this, because you just have such wisdom and you say it. There's some people that when they speak, they speak in a way that helps. I don't often do that. So I want to ask you to tell people where they can listen to your podcast, where they can follow you, tell them about your books, give them all that jazz.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me back on. It's just delightful to get to talk with you about these things. You can find me at taniaisrael.com is my website. You can follow me at Tania Israel PhD on all the socials. My books are Facing the Fracture, How to Navigate the Challenges of Living in a Divided Nation is the most recent one. And my earlier one is Beyond Your Bubble, How to Connect Across the Political Divide. Oh, and you can listen to my podcast, Ready to Be Strong, on all of the platforms.
If science figures out a way to bottle your vibes, I would love to purchase some.
Thank you so much, Tania. In all seriousness, thank you. For more Robin, and you may need that, you probably don't need it, but if you do, you can follow me at Real Rob Hops on all the platforms, all the socials, as the kids today say. Well Adjusting is an Edit Audio original series. It's exec produced by Steph Colburn and Robin Hopkins. Our producer and editor is Maria Passingham, and our production manager is Kathleen Speckert. Thank you to the entire Edit Audio team and to you for listening. Oh, hey, before you take out those AirPods, this show is just for entertainment. If you are in need of help, please, please, please reach out to a professional. Go ahead and get that help. You deserve it.
Find yourself looking for a new job or change in career? Monster.com is here to help. We are not only here to bring you job postings, but also AI interview prep and salary tools, expert career advice, and top-notch resume services. We've got everything you need to land your perfect job fit. Discover the magic of finding the ideal job with Monster.com. Your future starts now. Visit Monster.com today. Your next job opportunity is just a click away.